Trek This Week. I'm Dan Guerra, and with me on my left are Davis Caperton, and on my right, Sean Finelli. And this week we discuss the season opener of Star Trek The Next Generation. The answer to the question, is Mr. Data Mr. Treta? It seems Pinocchio is finally given what he's always wanted, emotions. He becomes a boy, but it turns out he's a bad boy, and turns on the Federation that spawned him. Sean, what did you think of this cliffhanger episode?
I think if he's truly a bad boy, soon he'll be on Cops.
Did you like Mr. Data with emotions?
I think it's something that they've been building towards since they started the show way back in the first season. I'm glad that he didn't get them, as many people may have thought. I hope that sometime this season he does get them.
So you're glad at the ending that he didn't get to keep the chip and that it worked?
Yeah, it would have been too pat, I think. You know, just let's wrap it up, give him emotions for the last season, and make him less than interesting.
But the whole question was about evolution. He was evolving. Wouldn't this be great for him to evolve into emotions? Let's see how
I think it should happen, but I think the character will become a lot less interesting when it does. So I'd like them to wait perhaps half the season, have Geordi figure out how to fix it, and put it back into Data, and have then the rest of the season for him to work out what emotions are like.
Have it be less than interesting for only half the season.
Well, if you spend too much time on that idea, then it becomes old and boring. I mean, almost like if they had been constantly harping every episode about how Data's quest to be human, then it would have been not very interesting. They brought it up once every several episodes, maybe. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you never saw it for 6-8 episodes, and that was good. It was something that was always in the background that we were always aware of as an audience, but yet they're not so focused on it. Whereas if they gave them emotions, they would have to focus on that every episode.
I don't think so. No, they wouldn't.
No.
They could skip some episodes.
Do you appreciate this lobotomized Data as much as Sean does, without emotions?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of getting...
That's how he was created. It's not lobotomized.
No, but he was created with the potential of getting emotions. Mm-hmm. And apparently...
And one day he will.
You earn them himself instead of just as a gift.
One day he will.
Well, the whole chip...
But when?
Soong's chip was supposed to do that. So you're saying the last Star Trek Next Generation movie, 20 years from now, Star Trek Next Generation 10, will be Data getting emotions and it's over.
I hope they don't wait that long. But I don't think that they could sustain a whole season plus feature films delving into this question: how do emotions affect someone who's never had them?
They could just spend one feature film. They could just forget this whole... Don't do it the entire season, maybe the last episode, and then the feature film...
See, but that's too predictable too. No. I think
you don't want anything that's predictable.
I don't want it to.
They could do the first feature film to be like Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, where Spock was all messed up, emotional, and everything, and coming to terms with emotions and things. Do the same way.
You see, if Spock had gotten emotions somewhere in the middle of the classic series, he wouldn't have been as interesting a character.
He always had emotions.
Yeah, well, they always gave him emotions every other episode.
Well, sometimes he would be forced to show them for one reason or another.
A flower poofs up in his face or whatever.
Whatever. And
always,
but always he kind of reverted to the stoic, in control of my emotions, Mr.
Right,
Logic.
it was kind of cheap. I mean, every episode.
No, it was not every episode.
It seemed like it was every episode.
It
seems like it was every episode. They want to make Spock laugh for shock value.
Or sing. He sang. Now, the other focus of this episode was the Borg. How do you like the meaner, cleaner Borg? They're more vicious.
They're more vicious. They're better. It's a good villain.
Individualized.
I don't know. We defeated them pretty easily too.
Well, you can't not defeat the enemy. I mean, it's a television series.
It wasn't even a stalemate.
They're not going to kill...
It wasn't even a draw.
They're not going to kill the crew, and then the next episode's going to be about the Borg. It's going to be Borg, the Next Generation.
It was a clean win. I mean...
But you're not being fair. The Borg were splintered. It's going through a civil war almost.
Yes.
Of the group who wants to follow lore and the group who really doesn't, or is breaking off. So it's not fair. You're reaching them at a vulnerable point. Also, they're just becoming individualists.
I did like the idea about why they accepted Lore as a savior or a leader. I liked the way that they worked that out. But
how about this? A leader who comes in saying we need change and saying we have to all make sacrifices, and comes in and takes over and becomes a despot.
Hey,
thank goodness.
Does it sound familiar?
Thank goodness there's no contemporary political goings-on like this. It might be kind of scary.
What are you thinking about?
Yeah, Rush.
I'm thinking more along the lines of Adolf Hitler. This is definitely Hitler-esque.
Yes.
So even the banners they had, and does Lore make a good Hitler?
No.
You don't like Lore as a Hitler? Should have had a little mustache growing.
No.
So you didn't like...
Lore is a charismatic dictator.
But what did you think about this
Giving the people
this concept? Yeah, what do you think about
I think
exploring that in
there's
Star
some-
Trek?
I think there's some good parallels. I mean, boy, did they delve into it fully with the episode in the classic series where there were Nazis. It's like you can't get any more like, well, what would happen if there were Nazis in the Star Trek universe, than that. So this has some definite parallels, and I think it was good to explore some of that. And I think it would have been good if we had heard rumblings of this for several episodes over the course of a half a season or something. Like we heard about Selah, Tasha Yar's daughter. We saw her in the background several times. We knew the Romulans were planning something. If you were really careful and really paying attention throughout that season, you knew something was coming up. It built the suspense great.
I know. I was thinking the same thing before this whole episode with last season came up with Lore and the Borg. I was thinking that after Hugh went back, that this kind of thing should happen. The Borg should splinter up now that they're individuals and things. And I was thinking on Deep Space Nine, they should have through the wormhole came a cube-like ship, and it would have been great for Sisko, who has a personal vendetta against the Borg, if he has to relate now to Borg who are good guys, and it's one splinter group that wants to establish contact with the Federation and sends an ambassador to Deep Space Nine. Yeah, but it should have. But I was thinking, this should have happened last season, and this was before the Lore thing, and that would have gone on with what you're saying.
You see, I think they should draw out these storylines. There should be threads going.
Yeah.
I mean, if you took these 2 episodes and removed them from the whole continuum, who would notice?
Right. Well, but now wait a second. They've changed the original intent of the Borg. Originally, it was my understanding, the Borg were supposed to be this new enemy because the Ferengi just didn't cut it. And
I think the Ferengi were left behind long ago, and there were several attempts between then and the Borg.
And when the Romulans showed up again, it was going to be because they needed to forge an alliance. In fact, if you remember the first Romulan episode, the Romulans and the Federation were investigating these pits, and they were eventually caused by the Borg. So the Romulans were supposed to team up with the Federation and help to combat the Borg, and the Borg were the impossible villains.
Apparently not.
And they've changed them. Yeah, right. Now they've blown it completely. They're just as bad as the Ferengi.
You see, you make them too easy to defeat, by doing it in 1 or 2 episodes, and then they lose their credibility.
Well, maybe they are easy to defeat now because now they're individuals. So now they each have their own agendas, their own goals, instead of working for the collective. See, efficient government is dangerous. Inefficient government is actually good. You can't have a dictatorship that survives if the government that runs it is inefficient. That's why inefficiency in the United States government is good. We'll never have a dictatorship here. But as you were saying about Hitler,
you heard it here, folks.
Hitler ran an efficient government. Mussolini ran an efficient government, made the trains run on time. Dictatorships, if they're successful, they're efficient. The Soviet Union wasn't efficient, wasn't an efficient dictatorship, and it died. And I think your analogy with the Nazis, that's too much anyway. That's focusing too much on just Nazis. You were saying in the classic episode they couldn't have said it any better about Nazis, but this isn't, we're not just talking about Nazis here, we're talking about fascists, totalitarians and authoritarian regimes, and so there's no reason to actually, put a swastika on. I think we want to keep it more of a broad look at this kind of
We don't want to
analogy.
say the Nazis were bad. We want to say fascism is bad.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I know. I just want to say I think they should. They want to have an analogy with fascism and totalitarianism in general.
But is it? Look at
focus on Nazis.
One of the paradoxes of this whole show is that Picard's trying to say individualism is great, everything is wonderful, and he keeps asking, like at the end, he tells Hugh that maybe you are the leader. He implies to Hugh that you could be the leader, and always that there has to be one leader, somebody in control.
No oligarchies here.
It's just, and then Captain Picard's own ship. They don't take votes to see which direction they're going to go. Captain Picard's in control. And if he orders somebody to go off and die, they go off and die. No questions asked.
Dan, there's a balance that in the practical real world we have to strike between fascism and between democracy, between total efficiency and between freedom. And you can't have total freedom without efficiency or you'll go nowhere, but you can't have total efficiency because that takes away all freedom. You have to have a leader somewhere, but he just can't be too much of a dictator. He can't be too efficient.
Well, in about 5 minutes, we'll see what you think.
Oh, no.
We'll put the number up on the screen. You can call in. We'll have live call-in. Sean, do you believe that this fascism, I think the fascism in command structure is important. You guys don't agree with that?
Well, benevolent dictatorships are always
so it's okay.
Good in theory, right?
So if Laura would have been a nice guy and wanted to better all human or all species everywhere, then it would have been okay that he took over the Borg and didn't let them think for themselves.
No, because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
So he would have been corrupt no matter
You have
what.
to have like a democracy, but in your military
checks and
unit,
balances
you have to
system.
have. I agree that in the command structure of a military, you have to have fascism. You can't have a democracy in a military. But
even
the civilians have to be over
there
top
are
of
routes
the
for people to take
military.
to do away with the fascism if it's bad or if it's
Right,
not,
there has to be a way to get out of the system and
they
go
could,
above
you know,
it. Civilian
sure, you can
control.
Right,
shoot them.
Well, they could mutiny. I mean, then that's
Yeah.
outside the law. But it turns out if that they were right, then it was a justified
But
mutiny.
also they could-
And there are
right.
checks and balances on the ship. The doctor can remove the captain from his position of authority if it turns out that
But not
there's
based
some medical reason.
but not based on specific decisions or differences of opinion.
Right.
But it's based
That's
on
the first
mental
officer's
health.
job.
Well, and even
The
so,
first officer, along with the rest of the senior staff, plot. And I mean, it's basically it's a
Plot.
mutiny. If they plot, to investigate the captain or to keep a close eye on the captain. I mean, remember the one episode where the captain was replaced by a duplicate?
Yes.
And they did. They said, I'm sorry, you're not the captain. Obviously, you're making some poor decisions. You're doing some very un-Picard-like, things.
Right. But they
Unpicard-like maneuvers.
But they didn't do that. They didn't do that until he said, "Steer us into the sun," or whatever it was.
Well,
Until
that
he-
was the final straw. I mean, that's when it posed a danger.
Wait, Kirk
to
did that. And nobody
life.
even let up a peep
when.
in the last movie.
Crusher brought him into the sun. No one said anything.
I think one of the interesting things, there are two interesting command issues here. One is Beverly Crusher. The second one, let's go with first, is the Admiral taking down Picard for letting the board
That
go.
wasn't
for
this
letting
show,
him
though.
go. It was the previous.
That was the previous show.
But it's leading up. And in this show, I mean, he told Riker that just because he did the moral thing is not necessarily the right thing. Do you guys agree?
The moral thing is not necessarily the right thing.
Yeah, in this case.
I think
And-
that
and if Picard-
especially the Star Trek universe. I mean, people could apply this to things in their own lives, but especially within Star Trek, what Spock said at the end of Star Trek II should apply to everything that's going on. I mean,
Which was?
I think that's the moral of the universe. It's like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
But you're just like Spock, missed the point. All Star Trek's based against that. Everybody goes after Data when he's captured. Everybody goes after Spock when when he dies.
Well, no, but then Star Trek 3 answered that sometimes the
wrong.
needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. When the needs of the many are to have that one in their lives, when they have a friend, that is their need to have their friend back. So that's what Star Trek 3 answered to Spock. So
I think there's a finer point here.
Well, but as a general principle, before we get away from it, I think that's what should be done. If it's not the moral decision, if it's a difficult decision for you to live with personally, and it still benefits the greater number of people, then maybe that should be the course taken, especially within the Star Trek universe.
Well, the finer point here is that the Admiral is really telling Picard, I think, that he's setting Federation policy. He didn't have any right to do that. I think he deserves a taking down for that. Did you notice, by the way, the name of the Admiral's ship? The Gorkon. Sound familiar from Star Trek?
now,
the old
did you
series?
get that from the actual show, or did you read that in the book?
I looked it up. You're right, I cheated. But the point here is, should the Admiral, should Picard be more condemned for doing this against the Federation? He's put the Federation in peril again. Yet
No,
again,
you see,
with
okay.
Borg.
The thing he should be condemned for is putting Crusher in charge of the ship. That's,
Okay, wait. But
that's
before
where
you
he's
go
put
to
the Federation
I think
in,
that if
in
they're going to
peril.
entrust this man with the responsibility to manage his crew and the situations as however he sees fit, they've got to give him some reign, some freedom with that, and they've got to stand by his decisions at the same time. If they don't like his decisions, yank him out of there.
That's what they should do.
That's what they should do. I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen for the show, but if you're going to tell somebody, it's on your authority, go out there and you do what the guidelines of Starfleet or whatever have prompted you to do, and then we're going to take him to task for every decision we don't happen to like as his superior officer, I think that's wrong.
Well, let's start taking some phone calls. I think we're ready. Davis, you want to make a
Wait, we
point?
haven't talked about Crusher here yet.
I think Picard made the correct decision with what he did, with sending Hugh back. And he weakened the Borg. He may not have realized he was going to do this, but you're saying now that the Borg are pretty easy enemies to whip. And
Well, now they are.
I think that's not coincidental, the fact that they are, that they are no longer one collective. They are now individuals. They're more inefficient that way.
Okay, Sean, what do you think of Crusher as in charge of the Enterprise?
Well, I think that they handled it better than I expected them to. But I think it was a poor decision in the first place. And I liked the way that they brought back the concept of using the special shielding to go into the sun.
The one that she
I
defended.
mean, there was a lot of continuity that I stood up and cheered for, as it were, there, because that appeared in an episode just recently from the last season. And then they brought it back, maybe a little prematurely. I mean, they might have waited further on in the season to do it. But they did bring it back, so I applaud that. And they couldn't have done it unless she was in charge. So.
Right, but they also didn't put her in charge. I don't know if Picard put her in charge to be in command, really, but in order to be in command of the retreat.
Yeah.
As soon as the ship shows up, take off, and that's what she was supposed to do. Of course, she didn't do it. Let's go to some phone calls. See, we have someone on the line. Are you ready? Go ahead.
Time.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. What's your question?
I was wondering, do you think that they should, with Data's expressions, do you think that they should
Should have done what?
They should have like made the expressions like more human-like?
So more facial expressions
Yeah,
and
more
things?
human-like.
I don't know. I think that's up to the actor.
The you know, as far back as the second episode, maybe even the first episode, but the Naked Now second episode was on last night as a repeat at 11:30. Data was you know, smiling in his real quirkish way or whatever, and it just, I don't like the way that Brent Spiner plays a human.
So it's good.
So you don't like his Soong?
I don't like. Well, his Soong was okay. I mean, at least he wasn't, you know, yes, my dear Data, you know, or something like he tends to do when Data acts human. I don't like that.
Well, one thing that we see the changes that emotions cause in Data is he still doesn't use conjunctions. He still doesn't talk in conjunctions. So I guess he still hasn't worked out the expressions yet. Luckily for Sean, because that would have really bothered him. But Laura does that. Do you have a problem with Laura? What do you think of Laura's look?
I don't have a problem with Data doing humans. I don't have a problem with lore. I thought it was particularly funny when Data was imitating that human last season on Enterprise Mine.
Oh, the commander.
Mm-hmm, the very talkative commander. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yes.
But now, I guess the more important thing here is Data really ready for emotions? I don't think so. I think that's why he couldn't handle the facial expressions.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think, if given him all at once, that he was, even though they were negative ones, I don't think he was ready for them in general.
Well, he was being given them in an improper way, I would say.
Sure, and it turned out to be more like a drug. Let's see if we have another call on the line. Caller, are you on the line? Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh.
Yeah, what do you think about the fact that Beverly kept Riker and Worf down on the planet while she beamed up the rest of the crew? leave them sitting there, wandering up in space, wondering what she's going to do next, and she's got most of the command sitting there waiting to be beamed up.
Well, that's apparently that was their own decision. And in the novel, they go into that. Riker has some regrets about doing that, but he feels that right now the ship is not as important as the Federation, and they feel that if the Borg take Data and get all the information from him, that it'll be 10 times worse for Picard. That he'll have all the information from the Federation, everything that Data's ever read, and that would be disastrous. They would have no chance against that. So he felt it was better to be on the ground. And also, when you notice,
so Data is just a security risk. They should get rid of him.
Absolutely. And at the end of the book,
destroy him. He should be destroyed.
in the book, at the end, Picard gives that order to Troy and to Geordi. He says, whatever chance you get, destroy Data and Lore, or either one or both. We need to. It's no longer a question of individuals anymore. It's now the Federation, the whole Federation piece. The other thing we see, though, is the command crew does come back on. A bunch of the command crew does get back on board. The one smart aleck lieutenant. Yeah. He was normally to take control, except Picard has specifically given Crusher the command. So he didn't take control.
I'm not sure if he would have been the next in line for command necessarily.
In the book, he said he was.
Well,
after Data, after everybody else who was gone, the command crew on the ground, he was supposed to be next.
I don't know. I think
Next
that
in
as a
Dan
character,
has done
I
his
want to
homework.
see that character, and then also the woman who was on
Tate.
the bridge. Okay, I want to see them both brought back periodically throughout the next season. I think it's dumb to introduce a character, give him lines, and then never see him again.
Why?
It's just
That's tradition.
I know, but I don't like it. Doesn't mean I have to like it.
Well, Davis, there's one character you're particularly interested in, the Navigator, that we see on there all the time.
Yeah.
A woman is on there constantly, but she never has any speaking lines except "yes, sir,"
Right.
and stuff like that. So I guess you would agree with Sean.
Yeah, I'd like to see them expand her role.
So see more of that.
Sure.
Really, it was a plot device to leave them on the planet. I mean, nobody else can go in there and do it. If anybody else had been with them, they would have had to get killed off so that nobody else would be in position to save the day.
Let's see if we're ready for another call.
I don't think we're ready.
Let's go for it. Caller, are you on the air?
Hello?
Hi, you're on.
Hi, first of all, I'd like to say happy birthday to my friend Pablo Elias. And
Okay,
I'd
you
like
just
to know
did.
what you think
Happy
about
birthday.
the
Happy birthday.
premiere of Star Trek.
Good. What'd you say?
I'd like to know what you think about the new season premiere of Star Trek.
That's a good question.
What'd you think overall, Sean?
It didn't live up to the first installment of the. I mean, as a two-parter goes, it wasn't worth it for me.
Davis, do they ever live up? Can you think of one time when they live up
Yes,
to it?
they have several times. I can
When?
think of.
Not season enders, though.
Season openers.
Yeah, not two-parter split across an entire summer.
Okay.
Were you about to name one that had?
I didn't mind Best of Both Worlds too much. Klingon Civil War, what was that? Redemption?
Yeah.
I didn't mind either one of those.
I thought you didn't even like Klingon episodes.
I don't like Klingon episodes as a rule, but as a two-parter, season finale, season opener, I thought that
Okay, I guess it was
job.
good. They've just been slacking off in recent years.
Well, Time Zero, Descent, and what was the other one? Has there been another one since they've done this?
Was Redemption, and then the only other one was the Borg episode, Best of Both Worlds.
Well,
I think we're ready
the Cardassian ones was awful because that was a two-parter, but Reunification was good, I thought.
Okay. Well, let's go for another call. Caller, you're on the line. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hi, you're on.
Yeah, I have two quick questions. One, don't you think you were being a little hard on Beverly? I thought she commanded well under pressure. And two, do you think they should bring Luoxana Troy back? Because I think she kind of adds spice to the show, with making Picard feel uneasy and telepathically talking to Deanna. Do you like that concept?
Okay, well, first question. I want to answer the first question.
Sean's itching to do this.
Well, actually, you're right. I think she did a good job. They wrote her some good decisions for the show. I think that
there are bad decisions, but I think that's not her fault.
Well, I think that she did a good job in command, but I don't think that she should ever have been put into command. I don't think a doctor should be in line for command.
She's not. In regular line, she wouldn't be. But this is a special occasion.
I don't think that should take place. I think that the captain should have more sense than to put a doctor. I mean, the doctor's got other responsibilities. What happens if someone, if they have a battle and they're injured? Then she's got a conflict of interest. Well, do I stay and command the ship, or do I go and take care of the people who were injured? It's just a decision. It's just a bad decision, I think, to do that.
I think you guys are being hard on her in general. I don't think she
okay,
wanted.
I apologize.
I don't think she
for being
aspires.
hard on Beverly Crusher. No, really, I'm serious. I am too hard on Beverly Crusher.
I don't think she aspires to command, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think in her case, I think she did it well. I agree with that part, Sean.
I do think she did a good job, but I don't think that she should have been put in the position for her to do a good or a bad job.
And she wiped out the Borg ship, something two other true commanders couldn't do. The Omicron Theta and the other ship. I mean, these people who are in command don't necessarily do as well as she does. How about the second question, Luoxana Troy? Davis, what do you think of Luoxana?
I never really liked her on The Next Generation, but I did think she did a wonderful job on Deep Space Nine.
Scaring Odo?
So yeah, I want to see her back on Deep Space Nine, throwing Odo that party she promised. I don't really care to see her back on The Next Generation.
Right, I wouldn't mind seeing her on whichever show. I don't particularly like her a great deal as a character, but I don't dislike her either. And I do think that I agree with the caller that she does, give an element which sometimes could be missing from the show, maybe a comic relief type of element, but it's also touched with, some poignancy, some sadness. The episode that with Worf's kid Alexander, where she was going to get married, and through talking with this young kid, she realized that she's got to do what makes her happy, not what seems like is the safe and secure thing to do.
So walk into her wedding ceremony in the nude.
She also has, if you remember that one episode with David Ogden Stiers, where
it's called Half a Life.
Half a Life. Okay, she wants to stop him from giving up his life, from just allowing it to end, and to fight no matter what. So I think that gives her some depth.
Yes, those episodes. Before that, she was not a character with depth, and I didn't appreciate her as much. But since
more
then,
of annoyance.
Yeah, since then, with those two episodes, and also with the one on Deep Space Nine, she's become in my case, a respectable character.
Isn't this though just a case of nepotism? Gene Roddenberry sticking his wife.
Well, not anymore.
There's not much choice about it now.
Well, I mean, up till now, I mean, she was in the original pilot, the original series, and she'd already
done the voice of the
Next Generation. Yeah, the voice of the computer.
Yeah.
You don't think that's too much?
Well, I don't know. Apparently, she's popular with fans. So,
Roddenberry's
dead now. So, does she own No, Paramount still owns. So, I don't know. They just must keep bringing her back because she's popular, I guess. People. Well, no. If you go to a convention and like when they're doing slideshows and things of the different characters from the previous season, she gets a heck of a lot of applause whenever they show her character.
Okay,
it's out of respect for Jean, though.
That could be it.
That's not the true test of popularity. Does anybody dress up like her? That would be the true test.
Well, in some cases, you just walk around in the nude with a wig on, and
you're set.
And that's her.
That's how I always go to conventions.
Let's go to another call. See if we have a caller on the line. All right, caller.
Hello?
Hi, you're on.
Yeah, when Hugh interfaced with the Borg,
yes.
Were there any regular ones left over?
That's a issue of controversy. It's hard to tell.
I would say yes. I think the only ones that were affected were the ones on his ship.
Yeah, and what's this book you're talking about?
What they did is they came out with a novelization over the summer. In fact, I think it came out just last month. It's called Descent, and what it is they wrote the first episode into a novelization by Diane Carey, and the second part they took, and it was another author, and they put them together and they put them in a little novel.
Paperback, right?
Yeah, $6 novel. In the book, it says that Lore found different ships floating aimlessly, and he rounded them up, and they're still going out rounding up ships.
Oh.
So, well, wait a minute now. What may have happened is it may not have infected the entire board.
Just a fleet.
Just some of them, or sections, or maybe it's spreading like a computer virus they were originally going to put in. Another aspect they put in here was a conversation between Hugh and Riker, where Riker's telling Hugh, when Hugh's so mad at him for causing all this, he said, you know, Hugh, we were going to put in a computer virus that would kill you all. And Hugh said, oh, you did? Why didn't you? And he said, because that wasn't the right thing to do. And that's when Hugh started realizing that maybe the Federation, not the best friend, but a better friend than he expected. Yeah. Okay. So that's one of the interesting things about reading novelizations is they do give you a little bit of background behind the stuff.
But you have to take it with a grain of salt, because is that really the way it is, or is that just the author's idea?
Well, the author in this case would be the screenwriter, right, and then adapted by the author.
Right.
So it would have probably a lot more that the original screenwriter wanted in that probably ended up getting thrown on the cutting room floor.
They got cut, so it means that Paramount didn't really want it.
No, it means they didn't have enough time for it, probably.
One of the scenes that got cut also was a scene where Geordi meets Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, and Stephen Hawking. What did you guys think about that? Putting contemporary scientists, calling him the greatest mind of the universe.
Wait a minute, Data did meet them.
I know, but Geordi went back to talk to them to see if he could find out some information about Data. Probably a good thing they cut that one out.
Yeah.
But what did you guys think about that in the beginning as an opening?
I liked it. I thought that was a cute little opening.
It was fine. They had Barclay in the Nth Degree. They had him talking to Einstein and explaining some various physics properties, and Einstein seemed very grateful for the explanation, and thanks for clearing that up, Barclay.
But in a poker game?
No, he didn't play poker with him.
No, I know, but I'm saying the greatest minds in science.
Sure, I thought that was something that is something Data would do.
In his innocence, yeah.
To try and figure these people, he wanted to put them in a different kind of situation and see how they, interacted, and if he could pick up things. He's always trying to put different things in different perspectives, trying to see if he can observe it from a new angle, get a new bit of information off of a new observation. That's something Data would do. Now, you had problems with Stephen Hawking's being included in this, right?
That's one problem. I think one thing he does is he kind of jabs Einstein. Wrong again, Albert. And I think that's maybe too soon to put him on there.
And, well, I remember when this first came up last year, you were... or last season, I should say, you were saying Hawking shouldn't be on there because he believes in black holes, right? And that the next generation has said that there are no such things as black holes, but then you found out you were proven wrong that they have done black holes.
They're questioning.
So Stephen Hawking is probably in the next generation, whether or not he turns out to be correct in the future. You're saying it's too soon to put somebody who's as contemporary as he is. History hasn't had time to judge him, but even whether or not he's correct in our reality, in the next generation, in the Star Trek universe, his physics may be correct. We don't know that their physics in that universe are exactly like ours. In fact, it's going to definitely turn out eventually that they're not.
Well, they're claiming Einstein's wrong, that you can't travel faster than the speed of light. You just have to warp space to do it.
Right.
And that's where they get their warp speeds. So I guess even Einstein would be discredited to them, but they still recognize his intelligence. Let's go to another call on air.
Hello?
Hi, you're on.
Oh, yes, hi. I was just wondering, on your comment about the worst Star Trek ever recorded, what would you guys think it was? I know it's kind of a crazy question, but...
Which series? Are you going to... all series?
Let's go with the Next Generation. Let's go with that one today.
Worst episode of The Next Generation. Oh, gosh.
There's so many to choose from those first two seasons.
That's hard. That's the kind of thing I wish that I had prepared for.
Well, which one, if you ever had to watch one of the reruns, which one would you turn off immediately?
Don't ask me first. Let me think.
Davis, do you have one in mind?
Don't ask me first. Let me let's see.
Well,
I don't think I'd really care to watch Encounter at Farpoint again. just off the top of my head.
Name a Ferengi episode. I mean, just about any Ferengi episode.
The first one that the Ferengi actually appeared in, I don't think I'd care to see again. I don't remember what it was.
It was a Sung Soo episode.
The one where they were doing that little whip, right?
Yeah, which you never get to see again.
Yeah.
I think the let's see, which one am I thinking of? Oh, the Romulan episode with Tasha Yar's daughter.
Oh no, that was a good one.
The ending was so bad. It was reunification.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my worst ones. Sean, are you ready yet?
It's tough. I mean, just off the top of my head, and I'm sure this isn't an accurate answer, but remember the first season where the one man on the planet wanted Tasha as a mate?
Oh, okay.
And they went to the wife, and they had that stupid arena kind of a thing.
Yes. All right. I think you win, Sean.
That was dumb. I don't know if I'd call that the worst episode ever. Just the worst one I can think of at this moment.
I think you win. I think that's. I forgot about that one. See, the thing about Next Generation though is you can easily forget about the old episodes because you concentrate on the ones you want.
It's hard for me to watch any old episode. Like they show repeats in the evening, and it's like sometimes I just like, okay, I've seen this one. I watch it for the first couple minutes, like, okay, I've seen this one. I don't really want to go through the hour of watching it again, even though I think it's a good episode. I just don't want to watch it.
Even episodes that I used to think were good, if I watch it now in reruns, it's like, why did I think that was good? Comparing it to the new episodes, the last few seasons.
But now, have you guys
actually the one with
like
the one that I mentioned earlier with Loxana Troy and Alexander? That was pretty bad. I didn't like that episode at all.
But don't you guys find that yourselves doing that also with the old series?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
A lot
actually,
of them. Why did I ever like this?
I have not seen an episode of the old series in like 3 years.
You need to go back and watch them. And see,
I suppose,
especially one that you liked before, because now you find you're really questioning why.
Yeah, I haven't seen any in a long time, but I did when we were reviewing the episode with Kalis's clone. What was that one called? Rightful Heir.
Rightful Heir.
Went back and reviewed Savage Curtain, and that was an episode I used to like. And when I watched it recently, I'm going, man,
the Rock Creature and Abraham Lincoln.
It's horrible.
Help me, Spock.
So formulaic. It's pretty. I don't know. I guess the acting was okay, but just so formula.
Well, they just needed to open it up with saying guest starring Abraham Lincoln, and that would have helped out a lot.
Yeah, like they used to do on other shows.
Let's go to another caller.
Hi, guys.
Hi, you're on.
I'd just like to say that I really like to thank you guys for spending all your time entertaining people like us. And
well, you're welcome. Go ahead.
I just thought to myself, what's the difference between Star Trek and Deep Space Nine fans and say sports fans, like football fans?
You mean as far as commitment to the show? Or fanaticism?
Yeah.
You fill this with beer, and you could easily change this set, and we'd be talking about sports here.
The Bears.
Well, now, wait a minute.
The best.
Okay, now wait a second. People do make fun of Star Trek fans dressing up and going to conventions, and that makes the news. But if you watch, there are people all over the town wearing Joe Montana sweatshirts or uniform tops.
And nobody questions their sanity.
It's really not. It's just not right for people to make fun of us. I mean, you have to be pretty educated to figure out the show. I mean, you have to stick through it, and it's really a lot of fun to watch.
I think one difference though would be that this is primarily fiction, and even though sports is not, I guess, news reporting or anything like that, it is reality.
Oh well, yeah, but it's a game now. I have no problem with watching it for fun, just being a spectator. But I really can't see people who put so much commitment into memorizing scores from years ago and the whole ever change. It's every week. It's the same.
Hello?
Yeah, I mean every year it's just a different set.
Well, there are two different types of people. That's all, and this one side will never understand the other.
Well, I think that fans of both types of things are doing the same thing. They're living vicariously through the exploits of the people they're watching. People dream that they're out there on the field. That they wish they were out there on the field playing. I wish I were that good. Wouldn't it be great if I could have made that field goal or that touchdown? And maybe Star Trek fans are like, wouldn't it be great if the world or if the universe were like this?
So you're saying both sides have more in common than either side would believe,
or is willing to admit.
I think so.
I think so.
Which is the weirder?
I have reserved judgment on that.
Let's go to another call. Hi, caller. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hi, you're on.
Yeah. Okay. I had a comment on the Star Trek. How people dress up.
Yeah.
Well, I was just wondering. Okay, I think it's just it's a great show and everything, but I mean, it's kind of awkward for people to go on and just just dress up. It's just a show. And Davis, I love that new hairstyle. It's great.
Big pulsing nipples.
Yeah, we all love it too. Like he's the Grizzly Adams of the Star Trek scene.
It's not really new. It's just ever changing.
It's been evolving or growing. Right. Well, I think the caller makes a good point about it's maybe a little weird, but at the same time, it's prerogative of being in this country.
Yeah, well,
you get to be as weird as you like.
I don't think it's necessarily weird. I don't know. We were talking about the sports and everything. I don't know. I agree with Sean. It's about the same thing, and actually, I see more to.
I think it's just
more enriching to do it for fiction than for a game where the teams every year, it's just like nothing ever changes. You know, it's a new team winning this year, a new team.
You see, but sports fans
I don't
would
see the
disagree with you.
continuity.
We'll take it out of the sports comparison.
Anyway, I wanted to make the.
Let's look at.
I want to say, Halloween. People.
I was going to bring that
Some
up.
people think, oh, how weird to dress up at Halloween. Does anyone really think that? People think it's a very normal thing to do. Some people don't agree with doing it, but they recognize that it's something that's done quite commonly every year.
Sure, I think it's the same thing going on there. It's the fantasy. It's fun to be that character for a while. If you dress up as Robin Hood, you're Robin Hood.
And no one comes up and says, "Man, what a bunch of geeks! You're dressing up for Halloween." What's the difference?
It's socially acceptable dressing up.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
What's the difference?
Well, and the other thing is that these people don't really hurt anybody. They go off to their own convention, and they're off on their own, really, as a group. And if people don't want to watch it, they shouldn't have to.
Right.
The only thing is, news cameras always go in, especially when it's a new convention in a new town. They say, "Look at this," and they get to show all the uniforms. But I think it shows some creativity too, especially since some of these things, if you do a Borg uniform, that could get pretty expensive. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people do a lot of
the uniforms can get expensive because they pay close attention to detail. Whereas with other kinds of things, we've been talking about sports. I don't want to harp on sports, but it's easy to go out and buy a jersey at a shop. Do you see the Star Trek shop in town? Can you go out there and just purchase a uniform off the rack? I don't think so.
It's because it's more socially acceptable to do the sports dressing.
Well, and don't just compare it to sports. I think there are other things. Music. They have musicians, kids dressing up like their favorite musicians.
No, that's true.
And just sets different styles. So who knows? Maybe someday you'll have people going around with pointy sideburns.
Well, that's, yeah, maybe.
Let's go to another caller. Caller, are you on? Hi, go ahead.
Hello?
Hi, you're on.
When's Will Wheaton going to come back on?
Oh, I have the answer.
Our expert on Will Wheaton.
I have the answer. I just talked to Will Wheaton, actually. Believe it or not.
I don't believe it.
I get to do some name dropping here. Now, what was it?
You're going to use Will Wheaton?
I know. Well, that's the. Hey, it's pathetic, but that's all I can do.
I like Will Wheaton.
All right, wait. Here we go. In Sunnyvale on Wednesday, they were having a video toaster demonstration. Video toaster is a computer board that they use to do the special effects on the upcoming Babylon 5 series and on Sequest DS5. Anyway, Will Wheaton is now out of acting. He says he hates the whole Hollywood scene, the politics of trying to get cast and the producers and their whole mindset and everything. So he says he's given up on that, and he's now going to he's working for New Tech, which is the company that does the video toaster. And anyway, he says he's just going to produce his own movies and his own television shows and things with that.
So the answer is never.
The answer is, according to him, don't expect to see him on The Next Generation anytime soon. Anyway, I could not have asked. I couldn't have paid a caller to call in and ask that question. That worked out so perfect.
Yeah, well, some of us think you may have.
I think what...
I swear I did not.
What may happen is he'll come on for a cameo or something, a small part.
Well, like he's done the past 2 times he's appeared.
Sure.
Come on for 1 episode or something.
No, he said no more guest appearances. You won't see him on the show. Forget it.
We'll see.
Everyone has their price, they say.
That remains to be seen. Let's go to another call. All right, caller, are you ready?
Yes.
You're on the air. Go ahead, fire away.
Okay, I was just wondering, I only get a chance to watch the show about half the time, and it seems to me, I was just wondering, how many humans or aliens has Deanna Troi slept with on these shows?
Well, let's see. I'm gonna guess 3 on the show, or 3 while the show's gone on.
Well, we don't know.
That we have seen like romantic relationship with. I'm gonna guess 3.
But then you're also assuming that she is inclined to do that. Is it?
Well, there was the one episode where the man was empathic.
Yeah.
And they were doing the negotiating, and we know that like they shared a bed a couple of times. Okay, so that's definitely 1. And then I can't think off the top of my head which other episodes, but I seem to recall that she had a romantic liaison with somebody else.
She had one with the ruler of that closed-in colony, like
in the Masterpiece Society. But I don't know that she actually went to bed with him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is a lot of times you don't.
Yeah, we don't know that, and we don't know what happened between her and Thomas Riker. Although I think that it's suggestive that possibly it went in that direction.
But we don't know that. Wasn't the caller's actual question who she went to bed with or who she slept with?
Who she slept with.
And we don't know that they did either one. There's lots of room for doing other things. They didn't have to do anything in a bed, and they certainly didn't have to sleep together.
Well, it's good analysis.
Thanks for that clarification there, Davis.
So anyway.
Let's go to another call.
We'll never know. That's the answer.
Caller, go ahead. Are you ready?
Yep.
You're on.
Yeah, I really have just a couple of comments. One about the dressing up and comparison to sports attire. Is I think people are missing the point, is that people who dress up as Romulan or Klingon or whatever aren't doing this in public. I mean, it's at a convention where they are with people who share their same views on what they're doing. Okay. Where people who buy, their sports jerseys or whatever, I mean, this is a publicly acceptable thing. So I really don't think that there's a whole lot of crossover with that.
I think you don't see them as being kind of the same thing?
Well, I mean, I can understand where it's the same thing, but I think they're missing the point, is where a lot of people, like
you mean the people who are complaining about it are missing the point?
Well, I mean, it's, for example, myself, I mean, I enjoy going to conventions and dressing in costume.
Who do you dress as, just out of curiosity?
Usually Starfleet officer.
Starfleet?
Yeah.
What rank?
Yes, Sean.
Lieutenant Commander.
No.
It depends.
Okay.
Just, it's... But the point being is that where this is usually confined to conventions, it's not... So you're not going to go and be walking down the street and see somebody in a Starfleet uniform.
True.
It's just
or
not
a Klingon.
something you see. So I really don't think that there is a large difference where they say, it's awkward. It's not really awkward. Where you go in costume to a convention, no one there thinks it's awkward. That's the standard. That's the appropriate attire.
Sure. I take your meaning now. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And the other comment was, in regards to alien races, who misses the Andorians?
I miss the Andorians.
I haven't seen an Andorian since the second season of the
But if you
original.
watch Deep Space Nine, they made reference to Andorians.
Yeah, they did make reference to the Andorians, what was it, last episode, the rerun of...
The rerun.
Where there was an Andorian ship coming into dock. The reason you don't see an Andorians is that on The Next Generation, the producers of The Next Generation hate Andorians.
That'll do it.
That's basically it. They at the writers' workshop I went to, they said, look, if you want to really get your script published or get your script filmed on The Next Generation, don't write it about Andorians, all right? The powers that be at The Next Generation just hate Andorians. They think they look silly, and they don't want Andorians. They don't want to do the makeup. They don't want to do Andorians. Anyway, I like Andorians.
I can change the Andorians.
I think it's a shame that the Andorians and the Tellarites, who were supposedly founding members of the Federation, along with the Vulcans and Earth and Alpha Centauri, one of the 5 or possibly 6 founding races or planets. Yeah. They haven't been shown at all in The Next Generation. Neither the Tellarites nor the Andorians, unless they've done it like with Tellarites, and they changed their appearance so much that we didn't recognize them or something.
Well, I think that's just because they were founding members doesn't mean that they've stayed preeminent. I mean,
right. I think it's very natural.
The 13 founding colonies, not all of them are preeminent today in American politics.
Or even the founders of the United Nations. A lot of nations just take over.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's happened with Earth.
It's an evolving
That's true, but I would think that we would still see them. Not,
well,
I mean, we don't have to see the ship that's run by Andorians or anything, but I think we would see them.
We don't see Vulcans too much, and there's an explanation in Spock's World, the novel. It is written that Vulcans are sort of not a shy people, but they don't really get off planet much. They're too... They don't, really like to interact with all these people with emotions and everything. And it could be the same thing. Aren't Andorians also supposed to be sort of a shy people? Or no, they're not. We just think they are because they bow their heads when they talk. But xenophobic is the word I'm thinking.
With your Vulcan example, I think Spock was the first one to reach command rank, if not the first one in the Academy. So I think there's probably just some. They just aren't involved in the stuff that's going on.
They all died when the Intrepid blew up.
But I think Andorians is a good point. It'd be nice to see some. And some of the other old races.
It would just make a lot of sense. I mean, I'm not looking to see one necessarily. I'm not like waiting for it with bated breath. But it would make a lot of sense for it to have been, for us to have seen an Andorian or two.
Well, I think the Andorians are an interesting culture, and I'd like.
At this point, I can't see them bringing them back.
It's too late.
Yeah, I mean, and to do so at this point would be kind of a token gesture, and I don't want that. All or nothing.
All right, let's go to another caller. Caller, go ahead.
Hi.
You're on.
I really like Star Trek, and I didn't like it before I saw it, and now my friend made me see it, and I love the show, and just have so much interest in it.
Great.
That's good. All right. How old are you?
Love the show. I didn't really have a question.
How old are you?
Bye.
Okay.
Well, thanks for calling.
And
so there's a new...
Force your friends to watch.
Yeah, forced to watch. But that's an interesting aspect of Star Trek, is that when they have Star Trek parties or friends will say, hey, you got to watch the show. That's how it seems to grow. And it is pretty pervasive. think it's what most popular syndicated show now.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sure
I
it
think
is.
it has been for several
After the
years.
first 3 years, it was the third behind Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
well,
if it's
okay, I'm thinking dramas then. Yeah.
dramas, but I'm thinking for syndication,
Right.
Oh, I'm sure it's the most popular.
at least drama-wise. Okay, well, let's go to another
I don't
call.
know if it's ahead of Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, but
I don't know.
it should be.
They're lagging. Let's go to another call. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Hi, you're on.
Hello, I would just like to say you guys are so wonderful, and I would just envy you guys for teaching us the goodness of Star Trek.
Thanks.
And I would just like to know what happened to good old Captain Kirk.
Nobody knows. In fact, I read one of the synopsis analysis of one of the episodes that they were going to name a ship the Kirk, but then they changed their mind because they didn't want to give away any clues as to what happened to him. No, I don't think anybody really knows.
so they only name ships after dead people then,
Well, that's the idea.
like U.S. postage stamps.
Right. Except, well, who knows? And you never know. Kirk was such a phenomenon in his time. He may be like the Elvis. They may have
phenom.
They may have Kirk sightings out there somewhere. The only thing we could do now, though, is take a look at clues. And my favorite clue
I
is
saw Kirk in a UFO.
in reunification. Mr. Spock always uses the
No, it's just
past
unification.
tense. I'm sorry,
The book,
unification.
the book was reunification.
It's
Was
gonna
it
be-
really? The book was reunification.
It's going to be reunification one day. In the series, Spock always referred to Kirk in the past tense. I knew him, so not currently. Either they're not on speaking terms, or I think Kirk's dead. And the other thing to look at is in the movies,
Or he went through the Kolinar after all.
maybe. The Klingon ambassador once said that there will be no peace as long as Admiral Kirk lives. So
Personal
that
opinion.
may have been prophetic.
Personal opinion or Klingon policy.
I think
You
that's,
decide.
I think that's prophetic. I think Kirk bit it. And with his lifestyle, it's likely. And especially since if he loses command, what next? Massive depression, retirement, and he probably just
Gets married to someone like Lori Ciani, who gets killed in a transporter accident. Just a bad way to go.
Yeah, I think without having a ship under him, he will just perish, wither away. Let's go to another caller. Caller.
Yes, how do you feel about Commander Riker always giving up his commission for a ship?
Okay.
That's a good question. Davis?
Well, let Sean take that.
Well, I think that they do it so that he can stay on the show. I think that it's happened enough times that, especially like Best of Both Worlds, where when they said this is the third time we've pulled out the captain's chair for him, if he doesn't sit down soon, he might not get another opportunity. And then by that time, it was really kind of ridiculous that he should not take it. And the writers kind of wrote in the fact that the ship that he was supposed to take command of got destroyed at Wolf
The Melbourne,
359.
yeah.
And so it was a good thing he didn't take it, so we can all sit back and heave a sigh of relief that he didn't take command. But he should, he's like Sulu or whatever. He should take command of a ship sometime.
Are they going to wait till the last Star Trek movie to have Riker take his own command, just like Sulu?
It doesn't make sense, but I think Riker's a popular enough character that you want to keep him on the show, but not so popular that you could start a new show based around Riker.
The Captain Riker? I think one of the things you're going to see is one day the Enterprise is going to come into another Federation ship. You're going to see on the screen Captain Riker, Captain Thomas Riker. I think he's going to
passed him up.
I think he's going to pass him right up and go right up the command list.
That'd be great.
And that's his back on track. I think the Enterprise got in his way. I think William Riker likes being under Picard and likes being with Picard.
And not just that, I think he likes the whole camaraderie, the people on the ship. He's made friends. He's got
and it is a
Deanna
flagship.
who's there for him sometimes, and it's just.
Oh, David.
And it is the flagship, the premier ship.
Right.
He's
got a master plan. He wants to be captain of that ship. He doesn't want these other ships.
It's
he's had plenty of opportunities to off Picard.
He doesn't want to kill Picard.
That's why he lets him go on landing parties
This
on his
isn't the
own.
mirror universe.
It's a classic question. Is it better to be a big fish in a little pond or a little fish in a big pond?
I think he wants to be the big fish.
What do you think he's right?
I think that's a pretty good strategy, but it could backfire. And when Picard steps down, if Picard ever steps down,
You're going to get someone like
it just
Captain
may
Jellicoe.
pull Jellicoe
That's right.
right in. That should have scared.
He's not guaranteed.
That it should have scared the willies out of Riker last year.
Scared
when
the
they-
William out of Riker, and
so
he
to
could have
speak.
been Thomas.
He should start rethinking. Maybe they don't think I'm command quality anymore since
Not
I've
for
turned
the-
down
not for
so
the
many.
flagship.
Since I've turned down so many ships, they might just be overlooking me from now on. Even though I know this ship better than any, he ought to look back at Stephen Collins' character in the motion picture.
Decker. Will Decker.
Will Decker. Since that's the person he's based on anyway, he should look back. He should look back at that history and find, Decker was
speaking of
the most. He knew that ship like nobody, including Kirk, but they still gave it back to Kirk.
In the Star Trek universe, Picard gave Riker a promotion from lieutenant commander to full commander, so he could take the first officer's position. So I think that's, he owes something to Picard too, and I think he likes it. I just think he's happy where he is.
I think he is happy, but
nothing wrong with that.
Speaking of people who might be passing him up, you mentioned Thomas Riker. I'd like to see Commander Shelby come back.
Yeah, Captain Shelby.
And be Captain Shelby.
Or Admiral Shelby. Really let him have it.
Yeah, but, evidence that he is standing still.
Yeah, well,
whereas other people are moving forward. He supposedly is one of the most ambitious officers and stuff.
Yeah,
and
right.
It doesn't
He's been
show.
cowed.
Well,
he used to be.
It doesn't
There's
show.
that book, Imzadi, and I'd really like to read it. I've read the first couple of chapters.
Well, you've practically read the whole book.
And we've got, it takes place in the future, and Data is a captain of his own ship, and Riker is he's like the Commodore of Starbase 86 or something, and his career's just totally dead. and
kind of like it is now.
And Starbase 86, even the numbers have significance for Riker's career.
It's not dead, Sean. He's in a good spot. It's got all this great adventure, and he's probably got great name recognition.
Yeah.
Let's go to one last caller. See if we have more callers in line. Ready, caller? You're on the air. Go ahead. Hi, you're on.
I had a question. I actually have a question and a comment, okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, my comment is, or my question is, don't you think between every character on Star Trek that it always is like the features and just the whole body construction is totally human? I mean, the way it all, I mean, I think they should have a little more variety and just like total body construction. And my comment is, do you think that Data is more human-like than, I guess this question is more human-like than anything else? Or because I mean, I think he, out of all of them, is a lot like a human because I can relate to him because we both drink pork soda and everything else, but.
All right.
Okay.
I think if it's classic, if you go back to when Spock died, Kirk said, of all the friends he's ever known, this is the most human. And some people will find Data being the most human. He's kind, he's considerate, and he respects life. It's fundamental in his programming. In the show, the game, or the most toys wins, the most toys, with when the collector was picking him up, he said that's part of his basic programming. I think that makes a human type person. He was made in the image of a human. Mm-hmm. So it's likely he'll try to be a good human.
That makes sense.
To get back to the first question, why aren't they, more alien? They're all their aliens are too human-like. It's just a way that they can do it cheaply.
Yeah, I was going to say it's money. But I think the caller, if you look at a little bit further, that's a good point. The whole thing is geared up towards bipeds, towards people who fit that mold.
Well, they have explained it, though. As far as the Star Trek universe is concerned, our sector of the galaxy is filled with bipeds because, as they explained in the chase last year, our sector of the galaxy was just seeded with the genes of this master race, this original race that we're all descended from.
Well, if you look back at the history of the Borg originally were supposed to be insects and be insect-like, and that was going to enforce their hive mentality. They'd be like bees, and that's where they get their personalities from. But they had to change that because of cost, as you brought up.
I don't know if either one of you have seen a movie called Arena. It's kind of this it's a science fiction movie. It's about arena fighting and everything. Anyway, they had a lot of really alien-looking type creatures, and it was like great. I mean, they must have spent all their money on special effects. I mean, because the rest of the movie wasn't that great. But I think that even Armin Shimmerman played a character in that movie.
Who's Armin Shimmerman?
He plays Quark on Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
But it just,
he's a man who is not above doing a lot of makeup for a role.
That's right. But I think that with the Ferengi and with Odo, well, even then he's still a biped. They're both still bipeds. But it's like I think they're making just a small token effort, like I mentioned before.
Well, you've seen cloud creatures. You've seen Horta. You've seen all kinds of things, different occasionally. But why don't you see more of these things you would?
The only time we ever see things like this are in the motion pictures.
Or when they make them, invisible. Remember the invisible creature from a couple seasons back when Picard and that one captain were trying to figure out each other's language.
Yeah, so
they make them invisible.
Darmok.
And you can have these great monsters as long as they're invisible.
And if you remember when they got trapped with the Loxana Troi in the holodeck, he was going to communicate with an insect species. He was trying to learn the language. They were originally going to have them meet face to face, but again, money.
Yeah.
And so you just have to hear the insects and imagine.
Well, when you do try to go up for these total body makeup jobs, you either have to spend a hellacious amount of money, or you get creatures that look like the ones in Doctor Who. And I think I'd rather go with the you know, the humans with butt heads and things. You know, at least they look real, and they're not, you know, just trying to go on the cheap with total body makeup. And you know, Doctor Who's nice, but I wouldn't want to see it on the Next Generation. And they have explained it, so that's the rules of the Star Trek universe, that biped life has evolved in our segment of the galaxy. That's good.
Well, Davis, looks like you're having the last word. Remember, if you have an extra $22 to spend, William Shatner's Star Trek Memories is now on sale, and you can go out and learn all the insight behind it. Or you can save your money and spend it on Shadows in the Sun. It's a story about Dr. McCoy and his wife, the one we always heard about, and here's the real story.
Or you could watch this show and find out all about it and just send us the money.
Sean's going to read the book and give you a report. Davis is going to wait for the comic book adaptation. Anyway, in 30 seconds, you can turn your channels to watch the Star Trek Next Generation, the most current episode. And in 1 week and 30 seconds, we'll be back, and you can call us and tell us what you thought. Till then, bye-bye.